So most investors think they're losing money because of bad markets or bad timing. But what if the real cost is distraction? So today we're talking about the attention economy, how constant information quietly destroys returns, and why learning what to ignore may be the most powerful investment skill of our time. Will Young is here. He's a CFP behavioral wealth architect and expert in stock selection, super forecasting, and neuroeconomics. He's the author of The Enough Equation: Wealth, Wisdom, Virtue, and the Pursuit of Less, where he challenges the idea that more information or more money automatically leads to better outcomes. And so this episode is about clarity in a super noisy world. So, Will, it's great to have you here. I'd love to get into it. Why do you think list investors today have more information than ever, yet so much less clarity than in previous generations?
We have this world where you get just constant information, and the more information or noise we have, we feel like we're more knowledgeable. And when we wake up, you notice people, the first thing they do is they turn on their phone, they turn on the TV, they turn on something to listen in the background. And that's just going to fill their minds. Most information is just people talking. It's not nutrient dense, it's not information dense for the body. It's like junk food for the mind.
Mm.
And so you get all these thoughts, and what I've learned, it's called the availability heuristic. Whatever is constantly talked about, we'll start to pick it up and notice it. If you hear someone mention, I got this new Honda, or I got this new hair product, or I got you start to all of a sudden see it, and you start to see more of it because you're aware of it. And then if you heard good things about it, you automatically have a like for it. And then so you start to pick up things and noticing that you know. And because the media is constantly changing to whatever's the most popular. In the summer, it'll be shark attacks and I surf all the time. So every summer I hear 50 people tell me I'm going to get eaten by a shark, but they don't tell me in the winter, and I could get eaten by a shark just as well in the winter. So it's just whatever's in their mind. And that makes them distracted. It's like a distracted driver. And when you do that, you can't focus on the actual value of what you're doing. It's
Right.
just like when you're sitting at work doing emails, you can't check every new email coming. You got to write an email and finish it. Or if you're writing something, you got to block off individual time. And it's extremely hard to do because we are just overwhelmed with information. And the more information we get, the more algorithms thrown at us, the less we are able to concentrate and really meditate and put deep thought into things. So I think it's
Mm.
we're just all over the road. We're like a frazzled, caffeinated person running around trying to make too many decisions, and that leads to poor decisions, decision fatigue.
Right. So, constant access to the news and data and opinions, do you think it creates worse decision making?
Without a doubt. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, people with gold and silver recently going up, people are like, oh, I should probably sell the gold. I'm like, and then 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, I should have bought it. And they literally went from buying to selling. They're just constantly flips. I should have sold Apple, should have. And I'm like, you can't day trade because then it becomes gambling. It'd be like if you bought a house and then 3 months later you sold it and then you bought it back a week later. It's like you don't do that. You look for
Right.
good value. That's what you do. And but people don't think that way because they can see the balances go up and down, which then makes them crazy. And since the beginning of time, people have always wanted something for nothing, a quick buck, easy money.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. It's just now there's different ways that you can just go online, sit at your house, and you can bet on the football game. You could, and you used to have to leave your house to do something. You had to take action to do it. You had to go to the track to lose all your money. Now it's even easier. You can sit at home, you can lose money in the stock market, gambling. There's just, and that's the thing. And so we have a more addictive mindset of being one thing. So it makes it even worse, I think, with the proliferation of being able to trade and do things so quickly. A lot of people lost money gambling over the last several years through these online apps, and stock market to them is gambling. and Robinhood and other ones gamify, meaning they get you excited when you make money when they shoot stars and that it just gets
Right.
people addicted. It's attention. And where you put your attention, you think is more important. But spending time with your mother, spending time with your family, sitting quiet, peacefully. When you were younger, do you imagine sitting in the car and you drive like 5 miles and you're like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
I
But
used
we
to
didn't
do that
have
all the time.
anything. You didn't have any. But that's like, you had to self-monitor, or you'd be like, how long have we been in the car? And you're like, oh, 3 minutes. You're like, that's it? We're just not used to that. And now you're just constantly filled with, there's no downtime. Kids are constantly getting, so that goes into everything we do. And people just want to make quick money. They want to walk away with the win. And they think winning is what everyone does, and it's not. Losing is a major factor in improvement. You got to take
Mm.
it on the chin. You got to lose, and you got to understand your losses in order to make progress. Like at the gym, you don't just get better day one. It takes time and setbacks, and you pull them up. And that is an area which is more relatable to what you do, because that is something you have to work at. And here, we just think it's easy, or we can follow one guru where we heard this and bought it. And it's never going to change, but we want quick money and it just seems easier to do it.
Yeah, it's like if it seems too good to be true, it usually is. Even but right before we hit record, I was telling you how I don't know who to trust these days when it comes to anything because I feel like everyone's an expert in everything. Like you go online and you're just bombarded with all this information, all these people claiming to be experts. And then they're like wearing really nice clothes and they look bright and shiny. And I'm like, man, I want to believe them because it just looks so good, right? It's so hard out there right now. But I agree with you. I feel like the losses are what gets us the most gains. And you were telling me before we hit record also about like what you're on your 60th. Tell us about the 60, you're on the 60th version of your algorithm or
No, I've
your
I've done over 60,000.
60,000. Right,
Yes.
right. Yes.
Many
And
years of
so
working.
And so, how is that exactly? So, all those fails, you just kept picking up and trying again and building on it and building on it and building on it until you got here. But it didn't happen overnight. So, that must be frustrating for you is like people who go to other investors that have no experience, but they look bright and shiny, and people are wondering why they're not making any money.
Yes, and I for me, I started this, I guess, in 2008 when I lost money like a lot of people did, and I got caught up in all the hot, easy money and stuff. And from there, I always wanted to know, what do I follow? How do I learn? And so I started trying to figure out human nature. Human nature is what I called it at the time because I hadn't figured out that there was a field, or at least the field that I was trying to go into and understand. And I just kept writing down the notes and changing and editing the different steps to go through these processes. Now, I've gotten really organized over probably the last, I guess, 7, 8 years, really start. And then each year in each month, you send it like get a breakthrough. Oh, I wish I'd have seen that, or maybe if I'd have used this or that. But they're minor adjustments where before I was trying to build the base of that pyramid, so to speak. Now it's like changing some blocks out, refining them, trimming them, and stuff like that. But to answer your question, it is hard to believe anybody. And one of the things I did in 2010 is I had interns from the globe, and I go, there's this company called Apple. Everybody knew it at the time, obviously. But I
Mm.
said, I want you to go back in 2008 and do this scenario for me. What do you think 38 analysts said about Apple when they came out with the iPhone? And then I want you to look at the stock price from then till 2009. So 38 analysts said iPhone would fail. That was the point.
Okay.
It was It's junk. It's a paperweight, though it's too expensive. No one will want it. Once the Apple hardcore people, no one will ever use a phone without a keyboard. BlackBerry's the king. Like they were 1,000%, 100% sure. Every single analyst failed. There wasn't one I could find that didn't. So that tells you They might have been slightly wrong because I'm pretty sure the iPhone's fairly popular.
Yeah,
I
everyone
mean,
has one.
so there's no debate on this. And they're like shocked. They're like, how? I'm like, because people are fighting to be blockbuster in a world that's going to Netflix. They do, and very few people want to change. They want to make these bold, strong claims. And for me, when you want to look powerful, you don't want to admit fault. But for me, admitting fault is fine. It doesn't make a power play, so to speak. You don't sound powerful. So you may not get as many followers when you just say raw milk is good to drink. You're like, oh, okay, I'll try it. Doesn't
Right.
mean it's true, but they sound so strong the way they deliver it. And so part of that is delivery. The second part is this is what shocked people. Apple stock was around $200 a share the beginning of 2008. Now, the iPhone sold three times the amount that year, but the stock went down to like 65. And they're like, how? I'm like, because when the whole market collapses, it's almost impossible to go higher because people just sell. So what you notice is a pattern of sales are going up and the stock's coming down. You want to buy it. Because if you understand, it's like kind of like you're a fish trying to swim upstream when there's a flood coming down through the stream.
Right.
You know that's the strongest swimmer in the stream. That's the fish you want to, that's what you want to latch onto. And so that was just kind of a metaphor, a way to see it is there are good companies in bad markets. And when you have events like collapses like that and other stuff, you can look at good information, get and everybody be wrong, and you be dead right, but you don't feel safe because you're the only fish swimming upstream when everybody else is swimming the other way. And that's the social proof. Most people, and this is where I was born differently. I didn't understand this until probably 3 years ago. You can be factually false, but socially accurate. Like
What does
we
that
would,
mean?
that means some of the outfits we used to wear back in the days. You're like, you wore them. They were so stupid looking. I mean, I had skids, Z Cavricis. People were like, and I look back, I'm like, take my head off of that. I don't want anyone. I even thought they might have been stupid, but everybody was wearing them. So you were in. You're like, that's a nice
Yeah.
pair of boots. So a lot of times we just, or parachute pants or whatever it was, or some of the haircuts I had, a rat tail, I mean, like you just go, oh my God, like, because you want to fit in. Even if you
Yeah.
don't necessarily 100% buy into it, you get into it because everybody else is doing it. That is a powerful tool. So that's what I'm talking about. So that's why it's so hard. And in the stock market, you don't want to just buy what everybody else is buying because they're usually late to the party. It's the people
Right.
at the beginning. So that's what you try to identify is things like that. Like, it's always the case with that. But that's where we have this desire to fit in. So when there's a really good price on something, if you go to the store and you see a great price on it, you might have a lot less people at the store buying it because they all bought it up at the top price before Christmas. I might wait till March and say I'll wear that sweater next year. I don't need another merino. So, and then you get it for 30% of the value. I do that every year at Lululemon. I wait till like they have the pick downs and like I'll wear it next year. It's just waiting for the best value. But people don't like to do that because they like to be fashion forward. But if you buy good companies, there's no fashion to them. Like if you buy a nice black merino or a button, there's certain things you like. I do like that are in, but certain things aren't. They're just always going to be great. And so once you understand things, then you start to not worry about what anyone else thinks.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, how do you be a confident fish swimming upstream when everybody else is going downstream?
There's a lot of things to learn. Obviously, during the down cycle, I knew that AI was going to take off back in 2022. It was inevitable. The problem is, all you hear about in the news is loss of jobs, high inflation, high food prices. I'm like, at some point, if it's the end of the world, it only happens once, so you won't have to worry about your money. You know what I mean? We'll all be dead, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. And I would joke with people like that. They're like, oh, that's, I'm like, I'm not going to worry about the end of the world because then I'd have to worry about it. And then it would happen. I have to deal with it twice. I'm only going to deal with it once.
Right.
And I try to have that humor to it. And I go, look, if we're on a boat and it sinks, there's nothing, we're all going to sink together. But if you think Apple will be in business a year from today, they're like, haha, it will be. Then why are you worried about the price right this second? It's like if you could
Mm.
go out and buy Chipotle, I'm not Chipotle, Chick-fil-A. It's like they give away chicken. It's like people wrapped around. I said, if you wanted to buy it, you couldn't get money to buy it right now because loans are tight. But you're telling me you don't think that they'll be in business a year from today? They'll be fine. You're just looking at all of this news and it's infiltrating your mind and it's poisoning your mind. So just 15 minutes in a news, read, visit your family, read Stoicism, read books, and all of a sudden you start to realize if I block all of this noise out, I'm going to be fine. All of this has always been distraction. And we'll spend more time, men especially, will spend more time picking out a car, looking over a car, than they'll spend their entire life looking at the finances. Or a
Right.
football, they'll spend more time on football or sports than the act or fantasy football. And I go, when you're dead, no one's going to say he won his fantasy football league. You know what I mean? Like, is that what you want on your tombstone? No.
Totally.
So
Totally.
I try to reframe things to say, I'll do it for you, but I'm also going to force you to learn enough so you understand the mindset of what is abundance. Abundance is the time you spend with your family, the moment you spend with your sister still. Or yesterday, my niece finally came out of her room to sit with us for 2 hours. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. They're off their phone and sitting with you. You're like, is it real? Because they're normally
Right.
on their phone
Wow.
in their room. And that was
You hear
fun.
them
So we
speaking. Yeah.
Yes, we were watching ice skating, and I don't even know if I like ice skating or not, but I was happy she was out, and that made me happy,
Right.
and that was enjoyable. We were making fun of the outfits because I'm like, some of them are good, but the one looked like he stole it off a pirate. You know what I mean? And it was funny. So my mom, my sister, and my niece, we were just all laughing, and that's really the wealth that I try to talk about. Obviously, you need financial independence. But the reason you block all that out is so that you can have success and focus on your family and the independence and all the things that really matter. And to answer your question, I went back and I studied all this stuff. I went through Apple, I went through BlackBerry, I went through Blockbuster, I went through, and you just look at, there's always transformation. Most people don't want to be at the front, but if you nibble a little bit on it and you're right, you get a huge gain. I was able to get successfully Chat GBT and Claude AI almost 4 years ago. They made tremendous gains. People thought I was crazy. I'm like, if you put a little money in this and you go safe and this hits, you're going to make a lot. If you lose it, it won't even affect you. Just block it out of your mind. And so you
Right.
kind of say, just it's like taking $10 here, $10 here, $10 here, put it here. If it goes up, great. And you can do that with a lot of Spotify's another company. And I'm not recommending it, but during the crisis when the markets came down, if you have kids or you listen to music, music makes me happy. I've never met a person that listens to music that says it doesn't make me happy. It doesn't put a smile. You jamming in your car. I thought that was a good investment because nobody was going to cancel their $10 premium Spotify. They might cancel their extra cable. They might go not eat out as much, but everybody wants to have the music, especially with. So there's things that you could, people are like, that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to cancel your $10 subscription to Spotify for your kid. They'll complain to the end of kingdom come. So there's little things like that you start to realize. So Spotify's revenue was tripling, like Apple, and the stock went down 80%, which doesn't make sense. So it's the things like that where you see something and you understand it. It's not market timing, it's understanding. Humans will sell anything because they're scared, but they don't understand like the value of something. They don't look at all this. And the professionals do as well too, because they typically just want to fit into their groups. They go in the same social circles in the Hamptons and they all want to fit in. So they all say the same things and they never call each other out because they all go to the same clubs. They all hang out on the
Right.
same islands.
Yeah. 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 No, it's so true. So then I guess my question is, how do we stay informed enough to make smart decisions in the midst of all the noise. Like, because as you're talking, I'm relating it to like health and wellness. That's kind of like my niche. So I see all these diets and all these fads, and I bite for a little bit until it doesn't work for me. And then I'm like, why did I fall for this again? Like, why do I just not stick to what I know and stick to what works for me? But I have a really hard time like zoning in on that. So how do we stay informed when it comes to this financial investment market stuff without getting overconsumed and distracted?
I think writing down what is your goal, what is the person's goal you're getting the information from. Once you understand their goal and your goal, then you kind of have a better clarity. Obviously, I sell investment services and I manage money for a living. But I also have a very different message than other people. And I know that, but I'm still going to charge you and but I'm going to teach you and educate you because that is what my goal is. I want you to feel like you're learning. Most of the time, people just want to sell you and have it on autopilot. But in the fitness field and whatever the case, what is their goal? And then what is their claim? And then what is the definition? Because wellness could be better cholesterol, low, more exercise. You start to define this. I have a system where it's what is their definition of health and wellness? And what
Right.
is their definition of mental clarity? And no one asks these just basic questions because what they say and what you think, oftentimes I'll say, I want to make good money. And they're like, what, 15%? I'm like, well, so or if you ever ask, this is a perfect one. I always ask husband and wives. How much percentage you think you do cleaning the house? How much you do? They never match up, ever. You get like 150%. And so it's just basic things we just don't really know. And so once you do that, you ask, what is your reasoning process to evaluate this? Like, are you going to look up, other people in the field? Are you going to compare it to? So this way you kind of have a little bit of a process. And then are you going to have a way to evaluate the success of it if you do try it? Because we're all going to try whatever. What is your idea of success? 3 months from now, 6 months, like what is success? So this is a way you have and a way to start judging. Is this accurate? Is the claims good? Am I feeling a difference? Am I on track? Can I even do it? Do I have the time? All these other things that most people just never do. So I always have a way to go through the reasoning process and then the strength and accuracy of the claims. And then how do I evaluate, the accuracy of this? Because there's certain things you take. You take a headache medicine like ibuprofen. It works. You don't have to question it. But there are a lot of things that just don't work like that typically. So I think
Yeah.
that's where you kind of have an understanding where you're self-evaluating because what can work for you may not work for somebody else. And oftentimes people may just have the placebo effect because they're just looking for anything and it gives them that. So I think that you got to have a process and steps. And I have those written down and I typically tell people that. And that helps them because they'll say, evaluate me. And then a year from today, what are your metrics to give me a grade, A, B, C, or D? And so I ask, like, are you getting a C? Do you feel like you're getting a C? Do you even know how to rate me? And that's one of the things I ask. They're like, no. I said, so I'll show you. And then I go through the last year, 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years to show them. And that's typically where it kind of opens their eyes because a lot of people, they think they're doing good, but they're not sure. Even though they trust you and love you because you've known them, I still want them to know I'm doing a good job for them. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And I think what you're saying is very accurate. I've done different fads and all these other things, but then I got a keto pen for when I started the keto. I lost a lot of weight over the past 3 years because I surf. But the keto pen was a guaranteed way to make sure I was eating right, checking my accuracy. So you blow into it and it tells you if you're in keto or not. And then I got an
Right.
app to make sure that I was sticking to the hours. So those are kind of my ways to check myself because you can say, oh, I think I'm in keto, but how do you know? You don't know.
Right.
So
Right.
I lost a lot of weight, but it's probably because I lowered my calories and I cut out the quick sugar highs that would raise and lower me. And so, I surf a lot now, and that was helpful for me, that little keto pen, because it was a triggered reminder, like regardless of anything else, if I eat 10 bagels, I'm not going to be in keto.
Yeah. Totally.
You know, um, so
So I guess it
that's
comes down to asking the right questions and getting really, really
yes.
specific.
I mean, don't you owe yourself the very best? You only get one
Yeah.
life. Shouldn't you write just some basic things down in your goals? And then when you revisit them, that's how you hold yourself accountable in anything you do. If you're looking for love, if you're looking for success, when you start writing things down, you're putting these affirmations in. I'm going to accomplish this. This is how I'm going to do it. It's the power of the process. And once you have processes, you start to see, oh, who was that person 3 years ago? I don't even recognize them. And now you start to grow. And when you grow, like any garden, you got to keep pulling out the weeds because the weeds always want to pop up. And
Mm.
that's what the process does. So you're nurturing your garden. So that's essentially how you do it. But it is hard to make money because you're human and you get scared and it can seem like the end of the world. And is there a war? Is there a famine? I mean, there's so many crazy things going on right now that people are genuinely concerned. And I am, but I have a plan in place and I've already mapped it out so that people understand no matter what the storm is. I mean, unless Neptune sinks our ship, so to speak, we should be fine. We'll be the best ship in the ocean, so to speak, because I'm ready to pilot anything. So I think some of that is trusting other people too, but you got to have a way to verify that person to make sure you have a reason to trust them because trust is hard. And once it's broken, you know this, Lisa, it's lost forever. You can't get trust back.
Um, yeah. Even if you say you trust them again, you don't. You don't.
Yeah,
For sure.
trust and loyalty are critical and they're different. Loyalty is just how you feel. Like I know that I have no worries about them. They're loyal to, and so those types of things are very important. And when someone
And
breaks
then
that or
I'd add
lies to you,
integrity. I'd add integrity in there. With someone who says what
yes,
they're going to do and they do what they say, then I respect them so much. But as soon as they say something and they don't do it, then I can't respect that person.
yes, that is well said. And I think those are the parts where in life you just can't do everything. You can't do your taxes. You can't build your own. You can't do everything. I, I mean, I have to trust the person putting the two by fours in my house. So, so that's part of it is understanding and you'll get overwhelmed if you do everything. So learning the process and asking good questions, finding good people in your life, a good circle of people and letting go of people who drag you down and just you will improve and you'll have less obstacles, so to speak. And when you face an obstacle, you'll be better prepared for it.
Hmm. Hmm. So what you talked about selective ignorance. So how is that different from avoidance or being uninformed?
We naturally want to fit into a narrative that fits our social group. And so, depending on the hierarchy, this is why we have all this information in the palm of our hand. Prior to AI, you could just Google anything and get the right
Mhm.
information. Yet, people won't even take a minute to Google or DuckDuckGo anything basic. They wouldn't know that people overseas have a much higher health outcome and much lower healthcare costs. And they're shocked. We can't do it. I'm like, every other country on earth does it. They're like, what? I'm like, it's not hard. You just Google five other nations, Germany. Do you think their citizens are running around unhealthy? Like all this information's there, but people just don't even want to think. So it's just they've chosen to be ignorant. They have chosen to not even think or look outside because their social circle or the person they look up to in their hierarchy, and it depends on the hierarchy because there's the strict father-parent model. This, they tend to block out everything. So I'll have people tell me, I like this particular person. I'm like, but they're going to cut the subsidies on Tesla and you like him, but then and he's green energy and they hate green energy, like walk me through how that even makes sense. And they're
Right.
like, you have people driving F-150 diesel trucks to a Tesla place to protest. And they're like, make this make like so they're more in tune with the social group than they are actually the facts. And once you understand stuff like that, you can actually get people to talk themselves through how they process information. So that is a selective ignorance that hurts people because they get caught up. in a real cool narrative, but not anything that makes sense. It just, so I think that's the part where people believe in stuff like right now, Bitcoin. They wanted everybody wanted to people I know wanted to buy it at 110. Now it's 65, and they're like, I'm scared it could keep going down. I'm like, so their ignorance is they do the opposite. So they're constantly doing the opposite and they're selecting ignorance over facts because their social hierarchy has them set up to only listen to the group, not to look outside the group. And that's a very dangerous thing. And that's why so many people make so many mistakes time and time again, or vote against their own interests, or make decisions. And there were people when Trump won that wanted to put everything at, like I was saying, at Bitcoin at 120. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I manage your money. I care about you. And, now they're quiet because they didn't want it before. But once he won it and it was high, they wanted it. And I'm like, that's the danger zone of stuff like that. And regardless if I like or dislike somebody, I want to make people money. And the same with liberals, they were scared and they want to sell everything. I said, well, we can't sell everything because now you're taking the information and you're scared sense, your emotional component, and you want to sell everything. So these are the common things that people select because they just get a bit of information and then it just kind of spreads like a wildfire and they make
Yeah.
poor decisions. It's not both sides equally, but everybody can be affected by it. It just depends on what the triggering mechanism is. And also their emotional state. Are they depressed? Are they scared? Could they be losing their job? There's all these other factors that could have them off center. A good friend of mine is going through a lot with the job, so she can't even focus on the other stuff because she's got two young kids. So,
Right.
so there's other factors that can cause short term, and then obviously you could be a long-term person in this type of areas. So there's a lot of factors that when you sit with somebody, you want to understand their situation and not blab as much as I am today.
No, it's all really great information. It's funny how we'll do something one moment and then the next day it's like we completely lose interest in it, right? It's like humans are so like in the moment decision makers for the most part. So how do great investors decide what not to pay attention to? Like, I don't know, explain how to do that.
One of the things you want to write down is how things occur. One of the common things for men, especially, is technology. The men think I know technology. I go to Best Buy or I'm an engineer, and you sit with them and you say, okay, let's say we want to build a data center. Let's say we want to build more AI plants. What are you going to build them with? You're going to build them with a shovel at Home Depot? No. You're going to need materials. You're going to
Yeah.
need heavy duty equipment. If you want to farm or you want to build, you need the stuff you see on the side of the road, like Caterpillar equipment. You can't build anything without them. And there's not many Caterpillars, there's only one. You might build a lot of
Yeah.
different data centers for a lot of different, and they're like, oh, that makes sense. And I'm like, let's just say we're going to build something for 6 months and we don't want to buy the equipment. What do? We rent it. That's Unite, and you've probably seen it, United Rentals. It's on the side of a lot of roads and they'll have all this equipment. So if you're an excavator and you're doing different projects or you're just working in one area, you'll rent it and then return it. So you get people thinking a little bit differently. Like, think about the whole process and cycle. If you build a factory in this area, FedEx is going to deliver product there. They're going to deliver cement there. They're going to have trains delivering stuff there. Now they're going to have more people living there, which is going to have more alcohol there because they're going to go out to eat and buy food in restaurants. So you start to think about the synergistic effect. And I try to tell that narrative because people say, oh, the government is giving $100 million. I'm like, yeah, but they're getting $1 billion out of it because it's creating this massive impact and all these, and you're getting steel and then you build it, and then something that was $100 is now worth $500 because you put it together and you made something. Like if you buy a bunch of pieces of leather for a handbag, it's worth more when it's all put together. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it sells for more. Then so getting people to think about the whole process. And once you start to think of that, you need people for shippers. And I think that's where so many men make mistakes. Last year, the two top stocks for me was Google and Caterpillar. They're like, Caterpillar? I'm like, yeah, you can't build anything without it. And you have to think bigger and outside of your normal. So a lot of times you're just driving down the road, you're driving, you just write down things or think of things. And I know that because I would drive up and down the road and I'd see the United Reynolds, and it never really came into my mind. But I'm like, God, they got a lot of equipment there. They must use it. That's how I found it, because you see them all over the place. You just don't think of it. So just thinking a little bit outside. Or I'll tell you another one. I dated a girl who worked at Ulta. I go, oh my Lord, they got all these products. You go in the back, you get your hair. Like, that was a great investment. I didn't realize
Mhm.
how good of a service and the way they set it up. So just paying attention to little things. That I bought that years ago during COVID because I figured, the stock went down. I figured if people ever get their hair done again and women ever buy makeup again, it would probably be at a good price. I thought that would probably happen. And if women never bought makeup or got their hair done again, there must have probably been a nuclear fallout or something. So it's little things like that, like it's like saying men will never watch football again. Of course, so that's where I kind of would tell that narrative. But that was a great investment because it cratered. I'm like, they're going to open again. They're going to sell hair products and makeup, and people are going to get their hair done. I didn't get my hair done, but I thought outside of my normal circle. And that was a great investment. And Ulta has been a phenomenal retail brand or service so that's the little things like that where you can't just think of what you do. You have to think of, I'm dating somebody on which I was. I dating somebody and I pulled up and I'm like, this is really nice. I had never been in one before. And so that's how it came about. So again, I don't wear makeup, but I can be comfortable paying attention to what other people do. So that it's little things like that that can be very beneficial. I don't shop at Walmart, but I would ask friends and family, where are you shopping at? Oh, I'm going to Walmart. I'm going to Aldi's. And I'm like, oh my God, Aldi's have just taken, have you seen Aldi's picking up everywhere? They're everywhere now or in my area. So it's
Oh, yeah.
just, and that's how you kind of pay attention to new things where
Okay.
most people don't. Or I remember Shopify was an app that started popping up on our phones, and you don't know if it's going to make it or not. But if it did, it could be a big thing because we buy almost everything on our phones nowadays.
Totally.
So, it's just little things like that. So you don't have to just buy Apple and Google and Microsoft. You can start to look outside of that. And it's little things that come into our lives. And it's hard, especially as we get older. We tend to get more resistant to that change. But IBM is a dead company. So is Dell, essentially. They're not the companies they once were. And that's just kind of looking forward thinking. So that's what I think is important is looking at the changing dynamics, but not always being technology based because you need food, you need equipment, you need shoes, you need lumber for housing, you need stuff like this. It's all, so that's an important
Yeah, it's
factor.
like the study of human behavior, right? What are humans going to do? How are they going to behave, right? How far should we be looking at these projections typically? Because that can be really, really hard. Like we would never have predicted COVID, right? So when you're looking at projections, how far in advance or down the road should we be looking, or should we at all?
That is a question as a super forecaster to really be accurate. It's pretty much impossible at 5 years. Because it's just too much change. Almost everything's going to change. But I would say for me, I do it weekly because I update my Bayesian. But for a normal human, just look at things yearly. Sit down and really analyze things semi-annually or yearly. Or if you have an advisor or we're going to look at things. I do a really deep dive twice a year, so to speak. This is a way we can make sure we're on track and things are changing because you can also get caught off guard. There could be a policy change, but then other things change. But the reality is when legislation happens or once a year, just really kind of doing a deep dive. Do all these fit my objectives? Do I think Home Depot is going to continue versus Lowe's? Look at shopping patterns. Like I used to go to Home Depot and Lowe's, but I think Home Depot does a lot better than Lowe's. But at one time during the housing boom, they both were shooting up. So you just kind of look at stuff like that. Do I really want to? It's paying attention to what's going on. Or if you start to notice, I'm using AI with Gemini instead of ChatGPT a year from today, you might want to reevaluate how you're allocated You might not want to own as much of this because, like anything, it can change. But you don't want to do it too much, and it's very hard to predict too far. But if you start to see your kids using Netflix, you might want to sell some of the blockbuster because children or kids tend to be in the forefront of things because that's who the technology is sold to. And when I was growing up, we were brand conscious, Guess jeans, Levi's, or whatever the brand was. We tended to be very loyal to that for quite some time. So that is an important factor in life is looking at the younger generation because again, the older generation doesn't spend as much discretionary money. They're not going out as much. They're not eating at Chipotle. So paying attention, like Chipotle was the darling at one time. I mean, we can't buy Chick-fil-A, but if I could have bought Chick-fil-A 10 years ago, I would have because my nieces would make me go there every single week and people be wrapped around the block. You know what I mean? You're like, what are they? And then you go to McDonald's and there'll be like one person there, and you're like,
Right.
y- so it's things like that that you really need to pay attention to. And then, I was late to Apple, even though I knew about it. It wasn't until I went back and I studied this stuff years later that I was like, I should have bought way more of it. I just because I was caught up in so many other things like everybody else. That's why I worked on the models because I wanted to avoid listening to all these smart analysts be um, often wrong but seldom in doubt because they sound so convincing. Like this is
Yeah.
what's going to happen. You're like BlackBerry, who's that? What are they? And I'll tell you
Right.
one other
Yeah.
funny thing. BlackBerry had the chance for the original WhatsApp, and everybody knows what WhatsApp is now.
Use it all the
BlackBerry
time. Yep.
BlackBerry owned that technology, but the founder said, I don't want to fool with this open protocol. So they had all of this money available, but they kept passing it up because they didn't want to advance with their own technology. So not only did they have the
Wow.
beginnings of the mobile stuff, and they wouldn't get rid of the keyboard and open their email system, they closed the email system and then they closed their WhatsApp. If they would have had it, they would have had two make. So they made multiple mistakes. So learning people's failures allows me to be open. Yes, that's crazy. BlackBerry would have dominated things if they would have been more open-minded. But once they made a lot of money, they got closed-minded, and that's the danger.
Wow. So, do you think the future belongs to people who can slow down their thinking in the fast world? Like, I feel like no matter what topic I'm talking about, it really comes down to like being able to sit in stillness and actually listen and look up and look around and take information in without the tornado. So, do you see that being the future in the invest in world to be successful?
If you really want to stand out in a world where mediocrity is the standard, yes, you do need to block a lot out. And you're going to have to be okay with people saying you're wrong, even if because people don't mind being wrong in the crowd because they feel safe in that. But you're going to have to be okay with that. And you also have to be quicker with letting mistakes go. But it is going to continue to be hard. It's like running on a treadmill. You can't stop. You're going to continually have to fight running to be successful. But the number one thing, and this doesn't change with Stoicism, which I've studied, is the biggest mistakes when where people became successful, they thought because they had success in the past that that would just continue as if it's a guarantee. And that created all these blind spots. It's like just because you walked around landmines 40 years ago in Desert Storm doesn't mean you can do it today. You have to
Yeah.
be practicing constantly because the landmines are constantly coming up. So as long as you're willing to do the work, because once you don't, then you're either going to want to figure out a strategy that's more broad-based or just really average. But if you want to have success, you're going to have to control your emotions with anything in life. If you want to have great relationships with your spouse, your partner, your parent, you need to control your emotions. And I think one of the first things is controlling your emotions and then controlling your judgments. Don't be quick to make judgments. Make Be thoughtful of how you make decisions. And then when it's time to make a decision, you can make a quick decision, but you've meditated on it for a year, if that makes sense. Like you can make the decision, but it's not a rash decision. It's a I'm going to do this if X, Y, Z happen. And that's where you start to have a kind of a playbook on how to live life. And you'll start to have more success in every area of your life. You won't make rash decisions. You'll have a plan and you'll feel more in control in a world where you have very little control. You have almost no control. So this allows you to make better judgments. I think that's the key to having a philosophy like Stoicism, which is what I study and what a lot of my book is about, is having that playbook of understanding what's important, what is your goal, and if you don't need money right this second, then you don't necessarily need to sell things because you have an outline of, oh, I this money's earmarked for 5 years from today. So you're not making a decision now that'll backfire 5 years from today. So you're kind of plodding along, but you got to write this stuff down and you got to have kind of your own personal playbook to do it. You can have success, but everybody's success is different. One person's success might be 6% a year, and others might be 10, or it might be saving more money, or it might be taking more vacations. Because part of success is spending time with your loved ones and doing things you love. Like I love surfing, and all I am thinking about is being on my newest board in 6 weeks and just floating through the ocean. Like to me, that is a joy that I can't describe. It's ecstasy to me, just being out in the water. So that to me is worth more than just having extra money or a fancier car. They don't mean anything to me.
Yeah,
Having a fancier car sitting in traffic for 2 hours doesn't sound exciting. Being on a surfboard
no.
for 2 hours in the water sounds a lot better.
Definitely. So I think, Will, now's a really great time to tell everybody more about what you do.
So I manage money. I'm a behavioral wealth architect. I say that because advisory is a service that I provide, but my goal is to sit down with people and help map out a strategy, design, build, implement, and then manage over time so that you have the success you want. So much of life is just based on generic models, but we aren't generic. And with me, I try to really map something out designed specifically for you, and not just with investments, but the total comprehensive emotional control and can helping you with the behaviors that define your outcome. So that's really what separates me. You can look me up at willryoung.com and find me there.
Amazing. So, last question for you. If listeners could change one thing today after this episode, what would you tell them to change that would start creating the biggest impact?
Writing down what you want to achieve over the next year, and then every week reflecting, did you accomplish the goal for that week to get there? You have to have short-term goals to get to your longer-term goals. Because the thing I say, even when I have a bad week and I feel like I'm behind, I'll say, all right, I'm a little behind, but this week I'm going to accomplish it. You got to have constant wins to help keep you on track so you feel like you're moving along. Once you feel like you're winning, you keep wanting to continue that habit. So it's just paying attention to week after week. Even if I miss the gym, which I don't very much, 2 or 3 days, I'm like, okay, that's fine. You're going to get sick, you're going to hurt your ankle. Building the building blocks of consistency and doing things even when you don't feel like it. Discipline is more important than motivation. So that week to week kind of goals allows you to kind of keep track and say, okay, I didn't have a win today. I'll have a win tomorrow. That those little tiny steps really matter for your mental health.
Amazing. It was so much fun talking to you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lisa.
So much fun. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. We'll make sure to have all of Will's links in the show notes for you to check him out and his website. Let's start quieting our minds so we can actually see and hear what we need. And let's start quieting the noise. Lessen the tornado. Until next time, take care, everybody.